True Scary Stories, Story 1, by Mark Stein, September 2016, Southern Missouri. To this day, I still wonder how we had the courage to go on that adventure. Nowadays, I would never do it again, not for anything. Back then, I was truly fearless. The plan was simple: hit the road, film a few abandoned places, and try to put together a mini documentary about urban legends from our region. Nothing serious, just me, my girlfriend Emma, and our two friends, Josh and Becca. That night, our destination was an old 19th century cemetery near an abandoned iron mine. Rumor had it, the site had been shut down due to unexplained events, the kind of thing we love to explore. We hit the dirt road around 2 a.m. Cold, low fog, complete silence. Everything you'd expect from a well-told legend. There was no gate at the cemetery, just a collapsed wire fence and a few twisted trees around it. The moon lit everything well enough for us to see the graves, covered in dry leaves. "Let's circle around first, see if there's a good angle," Josh said. We turned around on the road to scout for a better place to park. That's when the headlights appeared. An old black pickup truck showed up behind us. No sound, no engine rumbling, as if it had emerged straight from the fog. "Okay, did anyone see where that came from?" I asked. No one had. Josh sped up a little. The truck kept its distance, about 30 feet behind. Silent. Emma suggested it might be a local farmer, but Becca didn't say a word. She was staring through the back window, her expression pale and frozen. We turned around the next bend. The truck vanished. Maybe he turned off onto a trail, Josh wondered. But just seconds later, the headlights reappeared. Closer this time. The truck was now about 15 feet behind us. Still no sound. Josh stepped on the gas. 30 miles per hour. 40. 50. The truck stayed right on us, like it was gliding above the road. Emma screamed. Becca started crying. I turned to look and saw the hood of the truck, scratched up, covered in gashes, like it had driven through an entire forest. That's when the headlights shut off. Completely. Gone. Nothing behind us. Only the pitch black of the empty road. We took the first turn we saw, a narrow dirt path. Josh killed the engine. We sat there in total silence. "No one gets out. No lights," I whispered. All we could hear were our hearts pounding and the faint hum of the dashboard. Nothing else happened. After about 15 minutes, we started to relax. Maybe it was just some crazy farmer or someone messing with tourists. We laughed, nervously, relieved, until Emma whispered, "The door. It's cracked open." We all turned. The door next to her was unlocked, slightly open, just enough to slip in a hand. Emma was shaking. "My backpack, it's gone." It had been on the floor, right by her feet. Now it was gone. Out there. No one had seen anything come near the car. We, the fearless kids we thought we were, never returned to that road. And from that day on, our documentaries became more serious. We learned to respect not just the spirits, but human darkness too. Story 2, by Noah Oliver, 2014, Charlottesville, Virginia. I just needed a cheap place. 3 months. That's all I needed to finish my internship at the university library. I found the listing on Craigslist. Furnished studio. Private entrance. Discounted rent for serious student. It seemed perfect. It was a small unit in the backyard of an old house. Had a double bed, a desk, a mini fridge, and a back door. Locked. No handle. The landlord said it was just an old storage room, nothing important. But even with the suffocating summer heat outside, the studio never got warm. The nights kept getting worse. It wasn't just the cold, it was the feeling of being watched. Sometimes I'd wake up at 3 a.m. with my heart pounding, unable to remember the dream. Other times, I'd find myself on the couch without knowing why I'd gotten out of bed. I started sleeping with the lights on. During the last week, I found something while cleaning behind the bookshelf. A dusty brown envelope jammed into a crack in the wall. There was a letter inside, handwritten, no name, no date. I tried to leave, but every time I open the door, it's locked from the inside. I hear her walking on the ceiling, even when I know no one lives upstairs. I see my reflection smile when I'm not. If someone is reading this, please, don't sleep here. This house doesn't forget. I froze for a few minutes, dropped the letter, left, only returned on moving day. That same week, back in my actual apartment, a friend from college messaged me. "Hey, wasn't that the studio where that girl died?" "What girl?" I replied. He sent me a screenshot of an old article. A medical student was found dead in a rented studio behind a house on the same street. She had hanged herself in the closet, behind the locked door. Story 3 by John Sellers. August 2004, Iowa, USA. I was 16 at the time, and like every small-town teenager, I was always looking for something to break the boredom. One Friday night, a classmate, Derek, invited us for a different kind of hangout. His parents had just inherited an old house in the middle of nowhere, isolated, no neighbors for miles. The place was still under renovation, but the ground floor was accessible. We brought flashlights, snacks, some booze, hidden from our parents, and something else. Travis showed up with what he called the Russian answer game. He said he'd learned it from an uncle in Alaska who supposedly brought the game back from Russia in the 90s. It was simple. You drew the alphabet and numbers on a large sheet of paper, placed a glass cup in the center, and lit 2 candles. There could be no joking around. The game only worked if everyone stayed silent, and if someone in the room was truly afraid. At first it felt silly. "Is anyone here? What's your name? Did you die in this house?" Nothing. Until someone, of course, decided to push it further. "Let's ask who here is going to die first," Travis said, laughing. Everyone thought it was bold, and they picked me to ask the question. "If you're scared, it has to be you." I placed my fingers on the glass. I asked the question, and I waited. After a few seconds, the glass started to move, letter by letter. N-A-T-H-A-N. Silence. Nathan was sitting right next to me. He laughed, but you could tell he was uncomfortable. "Very funny. Who's moving it?" No one answered. We ended the game right there. But something in the air had changed. 3 months later, during winter break, Nathan died in an accident. He was alone, driving back from his grandfather's house on a snowy rural road. The car skidded on a curve and crashed into a tree. He died instantly. What destroyed me the most was what the police found. The brakes had been cut. They said it could have been vandalism or a garage error, but I never believed that. To this day, I still wonder, did someone in that room already know? Was the game just an excuse? I never saw any of those kids again, and I never touched a glass cup to play that game again. Better to let fate play its course, without trying to get answers before their time. Story 4 by George Malkin. March 2021, rural Virginia. At the time, I was 35 years old. I worked as a security systems technician and lived a pretty normal life. Rented house, a young daughter, and an ex-wife I still got along with. Nothing out of the ordinary. Until one random afternoon, in the middle of a job, I felt a pain in my chest so intense it blinded me. I collapsed in a parking lot, cardiac arrest. And by some miracle, I survived long enough to be rushed to the hospital, straight to surgery. Later, the doctors told me it was critical. Multiple arteries blocked, heart on the verge of total failure. While the medical team was fighting to keep me alive, my ex-wife waited outside with our daughter asleep in her arms. She told me later that everything felt too quiet until her phone vibrated. It was a WhatsApp notification. Sender, my name, a voice message. She told me her blood froze because she knew, like everyone else did, that my phone was at home, locked in our bedroom, dead, with no battery. She'd been the one to put it away before heading to the hospital. She pressed play. The message said, "Hey, my dear friend, who was once my love. I'm sitting on a bench. It's peaceful. It's strange, but I feel warm. Tell our little girl everything's going to be okay. I don't think I'm alone." 13 seconds. She showed me the message a month later when I was finally back home. Still weak, still trying to piece together the memories I'd lost. When I heard it, every hair on my body stood up. It was my voice, but it sounded different. Like I had my eyes closed while speaking. Like I was trying to convince myself it was real. I checked my phone. The message was there. Timestamp, 6:13 p.m. Exactly 22 minutes after I'd been wheeled into surgery. But WhatsApp didn't show the audio saved locally, only as sent. As if it had been recorded on another device and sent by a version of me that wasn't here anymore. Since then, life has returned to normal, except for the dreams. Every week at least once, I see myself sitting on a wooden bench, facing a lake I've never seen before. The sun warms my back, and someone is standing behind me. Someone I never have the courage to look at. He only says, "Just a little longer, and you'll be back." And then I wake up, breathless, heart racing. No one believes me, and I try to forget. But every time I hear that recording, I realize something. At that moment, during surgery, someone had my phone, and that someone wasn't me. And today, I believe in miracles.
Story 5 by Carolyn Thompson. Fall of 1992. Rural Kentucky. I was 6 years old. At that age when you still believe the world is made only of good things. During the week, my parents worked all day, so my twin brother and I spent our afternoons on a small farm owned by an elderly couple who looked after kids. We called them Aunt May and Uncle Earl. She was a retired art teacher. He spent his days in the barn, carving wooden toys that looked like they came straight out of a fairy tale. They had 2 grandkids our age who visited almost every weekend. We spent hours playing in the orchard, near the pond, among the crisp autumn leaves. But the best day of the year was Thanksgiving dinner. The house would fill with candles, sweet smells, colorful dishes, and soft music playing from an old radio in the living room. It was the kind of place where time seemed to stand still. That afternoon, the boys were playing war with sticks, pretending to be soldiers. Ellie, their granddaughter, and I wanted to throw a harvest party with flowers. We walked to the edge of the forest, where some bushes grew with small bluish flowers. We thought it was wild lavender, but the smell was stronger, different, almost citrusy. Still, we started picking them and made little crowns. That's when we saw a path between the trees, an old trail, barely visible, covered in fallen leaves. "Let's see where it goes," she said, eyes sparkling with the kind of curiosity only kids who think everything is safe still have. I said yes. The path led us deeper into the woods, where all sound seemed to disappear. We passed trees so old they creaked even without wind. The air felt damp, almost heavy, until we came upon a round clearing, perfectly symmetrical, like someone had carved it out. In the center stood a stone well, large, ancient, with spiral steps carved into its wall, leading down into complete darkness. Ellie picked up a rock and dropped it. Nothing. No sound. No splash. It was as if the bottom didn't exist. I walked closer to the larger stones scattered around. That's when I realized they weren't just stones. They were grave markers. No crosses. No polished marble. Just crude, uneven rocks, carved by hand, names, dates, and strange symbols etched into them. My stomach twisted. Then Ellie tapped my shoulder. "Look," she whispered, across the clearing between the trees. Someone was there, a tall figure in dark clothing. Still, covered by a long cloak, a hood hiding its face. We froze. She squeezed my hand. Time stopped. The clearing, once bathed in golden sunlight, darkened as clouds covered the sun. And the thing moved. We ran. Ellie was faster. I tripped over a branch, scraped my knee. Still, I got up and kept going. Just before we left the trail, I looked back. It was there, standing, watching. At the edge of the clearing, between the grave markers. We burst into the house in a panic, screaming and breathless. Uncle Earl came running from the barn, his hands stained with paint. He tried to calm us down, but we couldn't even speak. They bathed us, gave us clean clothes, but the fear lingered. We spent Thanksgiving dinner in silence. We wouldn't go near the windows. We refused to step outside. Everyone said it was just our imagination. Maybe the flowers made us dizzy. Just childish fantasy, but I knew. Something saw us that day, and the forest knew we had entered where we didn't belong. 15 years later, my mother called me. She said Uncle Earl had been found dead. Suicide. Ellie was the one who found him. In the garage, there were dozens of old notebooks stacked up, pages filled with symbols, accounts of visions, descriptions of voices, and names no one dared to repeat. There were letters, one for his wife and one for Ellie. In hers, he wrote, "Forgive me, little one. I tried to keep it away from you, but I failed. I should have never done what I did at that well."
Story 6 by Stephen Martine. April 2016, Tennessee, USA. We just wanted to make a short film. Me, Kyle, James, and Liv. We were film students and took a 2-week road trip, crossing the southern US in search of abandoned places to shoot. It was supposed to be a mix of rural horror and documentary. We thought it would be fun, and it was, until we found that barn. It was in the middle of nowhere, a field of short grass, clear skies, and late afternoon sun. The barn looked old on the outside, but strangely intact. No holes, no broken windows, no graffiti. It looked frozen in time. We parked the car near a collapsed fence and walked the rest of the way. The place felt too perfect to be real. Liv was the first to notice the wooden trapdoor in the back, one of those old cellar-style double doors. It was locked with a thick chain, but the strangest part was the sound. Someone was breathing down there. We thought maybe it was an animal or someone trapped. Kyle found an iron rod in a nearby shed and broke the lock. As soon as he forced the door open, something slammed against it from the inside. Hard, sharp. Everyone backed away. Liv screamed. James took off running. I stood there, frozen. I don't know why. I didn't want to open it, but I didn't want to leave either. That's when everything went dark. Literally, as if someone threw a black blanket over my head. As if the world switched off. I could hear screaming, but I couldn't see anyone. I felt something cold press against my chest, followed by a sharp pain in my head. A pain that didn't end. When I woke up, I was lying in the grass outside the barn. My head was bleeding, a deep cut on my forehead. The others were around me, pale, silent. I asked what had happened. No one answered. They just helped me up. It was Kyle who finally spoke. "Dude, the barn changed." We went back. The walls were cracked. The roof had collapsed. The floor was covered in leaves, rats, rust. But it was the same place, same entrance, same broken lock. Only now, it looked like it had been abandoned for decades. Since that day, none of us ever spoke about it again. Not in class, not during drunk conversations. And the short film, it was never finished. Story 7 by Carl F. September, 2001, Georgia, USA. I was 13 years old. I lived in a small town, the kind where everyone knows everyone, or thinks they do. To earn a little money, I used to sell birthday cards door to door after school. It was part of a program a teacher encouraged. He said it would teach us responsibility, and I believed him. I would ride my bike through the neighborhood with my backpack full of envelopes and colorful flyers. It felt safe. Until that evening. I was heading home after covering a new block. It was around 7 p.m. The streetlights were coming on, and the streets were almost empty. That's when a black SUV with tinted windows stopped on the other side of the street. Slowly, the engine running, like it was waiting for something. I kept pedaling. 2 blocks from my house, I heard a voice. "Hey, kid!" It was the man driving. He rolled down the window and smiled. "We're looking for Mrs. McAllister's house. Do you know where it is?" I shook my head, still pedaling. "She lives around here, but I don't know the number." From the passenger seat, a woman leaned over. She wore a cap and sunglasses. Strangely, even at night. "Why don't you hop in and show us?" she said. "We'll drop you off after." "There's soda and snacks in here," she added, laughing. Something felt off. The car was too clean. The woman didn't take her eyes off me, and the man's smile felt forced, rehearsed. I lied. I said I lived nearby and that my dad was a cop. Their expressions changed for a second. I bolted, pedaled like crazy, didn't look back. I turned down random streets until I was sure they weren't following me. When I got home, I stayed on the porch for a few minutes, out of breath, pretending nothing had happened. But the next day, I told my mom everything. She called the police. I described the car, gave them part of the license plate. Everything I could remember. Nothing was found. No cameras on the street. No witnesses. No Mrs. McAllister. After that, I stopped selling cards. But to this day, even after all this time, every time I see a black SUV with tinted windows, my stomach turns. Story 8 by Paul Santine. February 1998, Illinois, USA. When I was a child, I used to have the same dream over and over again. I was in an old orchard, the ground covered in dry leaves, and there was only one tree with ripe fruit. There, I'd play with a girl my age. Dark skin, braided hair tied with red ribbons, wearing a red and white plaid cotton dress. Her name was Lena. We played with a cloth ball, looked for insects, or just lay on the ground, staring at the sky. At the end of every dream, a man would appear at the top of a hill, holding a shovel, or leading a horse. He'd call for Lena. She'd wave goodbye with a sad smile and run to him. I always woke up at that moment, and the orchard would fade from my memory until the next dream. For years, it repeated, and I thought it was normal. Kids make things up, right? But one night, the dream changed. I woke up inside of it. I knew I was dreaming. I was lying in my bed, and the light of midday streamed through the curtains. Lena was at the foot of my bed, watching me. She held my hand and said, "Come, I want to show you where I live." I followed her. We went down the stairs to the basement of my house, a place that, until then, had always been locked with an old padlock. But in the dream, it was open. She descended the stairs in silence. When I reached the first step, I froze. It felt like the air was too heavy, like something was pulling me back, not forward. In the middle of the darkness, behind Lena, there was something, a still silhouette, something standing in the shadows. "Come," she whispered, almost sadly. "I can't play outside anymore." I shook my head. She took one step back, disappointed. Then she turned away and vanished. When I woke up, I was lying by the basement door, my hand on the doorknob. I never told anyone. Years went by, and I stopped dreaming of Lena. I only remembered it all again when, as an adult, my parents decided to renovate the house. During excavation work in the backyard, where there used to be an overgrown garden, the workers found a piece of marble, its letters worn away, nearly swallowed by the roots of a dry cherry tree. It was a gravestone, small, and only one word was still visible: Lena. She died in 1901. At 7 years old, no other information, no date of birth, no flowers around it, just silence. It's been over 20 years since that day. Sometimes I still dream of the orchard, but Lena never came back.
Story 9 by Sarah L. October 2018. Rural North Carolina. I was never the type to scare easily. I have a degree in visual communication and work on independent documentaries. That means I've been inside abandoned basements, interviewed unsettling people, and driven down empty back roads in the middle of the night. But what happened that night made me see fear in a new way. Because sometimes it comes with a familiar face. I met Evan at an experimental art exhibit on campus. He was sitting on the floor, sketching the people as they passed by. Shy, withdrawn, but observant. Over the next few days, he sent me messages complimenting my work. He said he could see the pain in my art. It was strange, but also intriguing. During Halloween week, I hosted a small get-together at my friend Sarah's cabin. It was way out in the countryside, perfect for a quiet weekend with my project team. We invited Evan too, but he said he couldn't come. He lied. The party was lighthearted, laughter, a bonfire, cheap wine. Around 2 a.m., with most people asleep or winding down, the front door opened. No knock, no sound. It was him, wearing a costume like an old-time painter, long coat, paintbrushes in the pocket, and a black case in his hand. I changed my mind he said with a crooked smile. We tried to act normal, but something in his eyes was off. He didn't drink. He didn't laugh. He just drifted around the house, stopping behind people in silence, like he was studying them. I felt uneasy, but it was too late. I went to sleep in the guest room, locked the door, laid down with my camera beside me, boots still on, maybe out of instinct. A few hours later, I woke up to a metallic sound. The doorknob was turning, slowly. I froze. The lock I'd used was a simple twist lock. Basic. Weak. A click. The door opened. Evan stepped into the room, black case in hand. I thought you wanted me to come, he said softly. Get out, I whispered, my throat dry. You've been sketching me all night. Now it's my turn. A lie. I hadn't even filmed him for a second. He shut the door with his foot and stepped closer. Opened the case. Inside was a utility blade, some paper, and my sketchbook, the one I'd left in the living room. You didn't think I'd notice? You drawing me? He knelt down and grabbed my wrist. I screamed, pushed him, kicked his leg. He slammed my head against the floor once. Just once, but enough to daze me. He covered my mouth. Shh, this is just between us now. That's when the door burst open. My friend Isaac charged in with a metal rod. Evan jumped like a cornered animal and bolted straight through the window. We were on the second floor. He shattered the glass, hit the ground, and disappeared into the woods. At sunrise, we searched the forest. Nothing. We called the police, filed a report, told them everything. He was never found. But on our way home, when I opened my car's trunk, there was one single item inside, his phone. When we turned it on, no password. I think he left it that way on purpose. There was only one video. It showed me, asleep, in my own home. I don't know how it's possible. We never heard from him again. But since then, I stay far away from people with strange behavior. Story 10 by Helen Weber, fall of 2017. Baltimore, Maryland. At the time, I was 24. I had just graduated with a degree in journalism and was working as a freelancer for a small local website. That night, I went to cover a vigil for a young man who had gone missing. It wasn't a paid job, but I needed to build my portfolio, and anything involving disappearances and police usually got clicks. The vigil was downtown, near the harbor, and ended around 11 p.m. I was exhausted. My backpack felt like bricks. My camera battery was dead, and all I wanted was to get home, eat some instant noodles, and pass out. I caught the last bus on line 38. Almost empty, just one or two passengers dozing off in the back, and a group of 4 men sitting together a few rows ahead. They were laughing loudly, talking in a way I couldn't quite follow. Maybe drunk or pretending to be. I ignored them, put on my headphones. No music, of course. My phone had died about 20 minutes earlier. But the gesture usually did the trick. At least, that's what I thought. One of them turned slightly to glance back. Another pointed, pretending to yawn. They started giggling quietly, then louder than I liked. She noticed. What if she really is a journalist? We'll end up in the news. No way. Bet she's not even from around here. My skin went cold. I kept looking out the window, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. The bus turned onto my street. I had to get off. They stood up too. All of them. At once. My heart started pounding. When the bus stopped, I got off and walked as casually fast as I could without running. I could see my own shadow stretch in front of me, their footsteps echoing behind mine. I didn't look back. I turned left, then right, made a full circle around the block, They were still behind me, laughing less now. One of them whistled. Another said, "Hey, you dropped your smile." It wasn't even funny. It was just a warning. I turned another corner and slipped through the side gate of my building. Thank God I already had the key in hand. I went in through the service entrance, the one no one uses, the one that leads straight into the basement, where the bikes and old pipes are. I ran up the emergency stairs, trying not to make a sound. I got into my apartment, locked both bolts, and collapsed onto the floor of my living room. Holding my breath, I lay there with my ear pressed to the wooden floor, listening to the world outside. Silence. 5 minutes later, someone knocked on the back door of the building. 3 knocks. Even. Deliberate. Then, nothing. Until I heard something being slid under the front door of the main hall. I waited, and waited longer. When I finally had the courage to get up and look, I found a folded piece of paper, smudged and dirty, with a single sentence written in red ink. "You're faster than you look."